Thank you for following my mom's story. You honestly need to brace yourselves.
By now, you probably know the haunting story of my mom, Lynette.
My sweet mother vanished into thin air in the beautiful waters of the Bahamas.
For weeks, we've listened to my stepfather Brian's supposedly heartbreaking story.
He claimed the ocean turned violent, creating terrifying 2 to 4 foot waves. Waves that allegedly ripped my mom away while he stood helpless with a broken paddle.
But please, forget everything you have heard up until now, because a devastating new piece of evidence has just surfaced, and it completely shatters my stepfather's alibi.
We now have a time-stamped photo from the exact minute he claims my mom went under. The water wasn't an angry sea. It was calm as glass, so shallow you could literally stand right up in it. This changes absolutely everything. And it shifts a heavy, chilling cloud of suspicion directly onto him. Please do not skip a single second of this. If you miss one detail, you won't understand how deep his lies go. Help us share this. Hit like.
Please subscribe now so you never miss another breakthrough.
Let's look straight at the evidence.
The photograph was taken at Aunt Pat's Bay at exactly 7:41 in the evening, and it's the smoking gun that changed everything. At that exact moment, Brian was telling authorities that a massive storm rolled in, creating violent waves that swallowed my mom whole.
He claimed the howling winds were so loud he couldn't hear her scream.
A raging current supposedly split their dinghy instantly. But look at this picture. The water is so still, you can see the sky's reflection on the surface. There are no 2 to 4 foot waves. There is no raging current. In fact, the water in that specific spot is so incredibly shallow that a grown man could easily step out of the boat and stand up with the water barely hitting his waist. For an experienced, strong former Marine like him, wading through that glass-like water to save my mom would have taken 0 effort. Yet, Brian just stood by and watched her disappear. This massive lie leaves us with one burning question. If there was no storm, what actually happened to my mom in those quiet, shallow waters? The deception deepens when you look at what he did right after my mom supposedly drowned. As a suspect, he wasn't immediately locked up because federal agents take time to build a rock-solid case. My stepfather used this exact window of freedom to make his move. Instead of staying in the Bahamas to help search parties and divers look for my mom, he secretly packed his bags, with the help of his sister, who flew into the islands, to secure an emergency passport. He fled the country entirely. Investigators have tracked his movements as he runs in frantic circles across the country to avoid the media. He first hid out at his sister's home in Sacramento, California, before vanishing again and resurfacing thousands of miles away in Michigan, where he immediately hired a high-powered criminal defense attorney. He is moving like a man who knows. The clock is ticking, running between states while refusing to explain his changing story. It matches absolutely nothing on that photograph. But the most disturbing part of his escape is how he acts when he thinks no one is watching. While volunteers are spending their own money on boat gas, risking their lives to search the thick, razor-sharp limestone rocks of Lover's Quarters Key,
Brian hasn't shed a single tear or helped search for any sign of my mom.
witnesses saw him right before he fled, just sitting calmly on a porch at the local inn, sipping a drink and staring blankly at the ocean. He didn't even call my family to tell us my mom was missing until 24 hours after it happened. If he really loved my mom, he would have stayed until every single inch of sand was turned over. But Brian didn't just leave, he ran. And as federal investigators from the Coast Guard, Investigative Service quietly close in to build their final trap. The evidence left behind on my mom's boat is about to scream. The nightmare of what happened on that boat becomes even more chilling. When you look at the technology Brian thought he could outsmart. My mom's 46-foot sailboat, the Soulmate, was packed with high-tech marine gear, including an advanced thermal imaging masked camera.
This specific camera is designed to see clearly in pitch-black darkness.
And many boaters keep them running 24 hours a day, so they can check on their vessel from their phones while on shore.
Federal agents from the Coast Guard Investigative Service have officially finished processing my mom's boat,
stripping every single piece of electronic memory from its core. If that thermal camera was active on Easter Sunday, it didn't just capture the weather. It recorded every single movement Brian and my mom made when they returned to the vessel.
Investigators are currently scrubbing through those files, looking for the exact moment the dinghy tied up to the side of the hull,
which would prove my mom was alive well after Brian claims she fell into the ocean.
Brian is no ordinary boater. He is a massive tech geek who spent years working for AT&T, learning exactly how to manipulate tracking devices.
In fact,
he was fired from his job after company executives caught him secretly hacking the GPS tracking system on his work van to hide his real location.
He knows exactly how digital footprints work,
and investigators believe he used this knowledge to execute a high-tech cover-up on the water.
The dinghy's electric motor was a brand new propulsion system, which transmits live data over Bluetooth directly to a user's smartphone.
But here's the critical twist that Brian likely calculated.
The manufacturer states that this specific engine doesn't store any tracking history on the motorhead itself.
Instead, every single piece of location data, throttle usage,
and timing is written directly onto the microchips inside the lithium batteries. Because the local police took days to realize a crime had occurred, Brian was left completely alone on my mom's boat with full access to that equipment. He had a secondary backup engine on board.
And sources close to the investigation strongly suspect he swapped the motors or deliberately threw those lithium batteries deep into the ocean.
By destroying those specific power cells, my stepfather effectively wiped the digital map showing where that dinghy traveled. Between 8 in the evening and 4 in the morning. He thought that by dropping those batteries deep into a hole in the sand, his exact movements would remain a permanent secret. But investigators do not need a confession when my stepfather's own words trap him.
While Brian was busy trying to wipe his digital tracks,
his own lies were creating a trap he could never escape. When someone is telling the absolute truth, their story never changes, no matter how many times they repeat it.
But as the pressure mounted, Brian started telling totally different versions of my mom's final moments. To anyone who would listen.
First, he told the search teams that after my mom fell out of the dinghy, he distinctly saw her swimming south, right toward their sailboat, the Soulmate. But just a few hours later,
when he reached Marsh Harbor, he told a totally different story to a boatyard security guard.
He told that guard my mom was actually swimming north in the opposite direction,
trying to reach a totally different island called Hopetown.
The ultimate betrayal came when he called my mom's family on Easter Sunday. Nearly 24 hours after my mom vanished, he spoke directly to my mom's stepmother, Kathy,
and gave her a third version, leaving our family completely paralyzed with doubt.
He told Kathy that because it was pitch black outside, he threw a seat cushion toward my mom, but could not tell if she grabbed it.
And the last thing he saw was my mom swimming straight toward the shore.
3 completely different stories, pointing in 3 totally opposite directions. South toward the sailboat, north toward the island, or straight toward the coast. If he was a trained Marine watching my mother drown in calm, clear water, how could he confuse something so traumatic?
A jury will look at his shifting stories and see a desperate man hiding a dark secret.
The final piece of this agonizing puzzle lies hidden within the brutal geography of the Bahamas itself. For weeks,
rumors spread that a secret federal indictment was signed, or that Brian had vanished to a country without an extradition treaty.
But federal agents are playing a much bigger chess game. In the United States federal system, prosecutors rarely make arrests based on simple suspicion.
They wait until 95% of their case is completely airtight.
Right now, investigators are focusing directly on the terrain of Lubbers Quarters K, where a local volunteer named Nathan has been conducting intense ground searches.
A lot of people believe Brian buried my mom on one of the secluded beaches.
But the actual terrain reveals a much darker reality, making a hidden grave impossible.